I'm so excited to share with you guys this incredible Google Docs template that I created that you can customize to use to keep track of your characters, your outline, your research that you're doing, even index cards if you like to plot your books, and of course, to write in an aesthetic Google Doc that will be very helpful and hopefully support your writing journey. So let's dive into why and how I use Google Docs. I love Google Docs. Seriously, I love it so much. I have written more than 25 novels inside Google Docs, and I use it every single day. And I'm so excited to show you how I use it, how I set up my documents for my writing, and why it's been such a game changer for me. I do have a full template for you as well that I spent probably too much time working on yesterday. If you want to make your Google Docs really aesthetic and beautiful and functional, their new tabs feature where you can basically create mini documents inside a single Google Docs. Chef's kiss. It has really changed the game and made it so much more flexible and customizable. So I'm going to show you some of that. But first, I want you to grab this free template that I made for you. So if you're interested in going through this process with me today and setting it up for your own work in progress, you can grab that template by signing up for my newsletter list. The link is down below, and I'll pin it also to the first comment down below. If you are already on my newsletter list, then you got an email today, or you can find it inside the Heart Breathings resource library, along with dozens of other free resources like how to plot your novel, how to edit your novel, how to write scenes, how to come up with great ideas, and lots more to come later this year. So I would love to have you on that newsletter list. Go ahead and sign up, and we're going to walk through that together today. But let me talk for just a minute about why I first started using Google Docs back in probably 2011 or 2012, and why it has made such a big difference in my writing. So I am the type of writer who likes to write in different locations. I know that some writers have this one laptop and they sit at the same place every single day and they write, and it's their one place of writing. I am not like that. I have a desktop in this room that I like to write on, but I also have my laptop that I carry with me. I have a second laptop that I can use for editing my videos. And then sometimes I'm just at the doctor's office or somewhere and I want to make some notes or brainstorm about my document. So I like to be able to pull out my phone and access my work in progress. So I have never been the kind of writer who just has one main computer and one major place that I sit down. And because of that, some of the type of software like Scrivener that in the day, I think it's different now, but back in the day when I first started in 2010, you had to basically have it on your computer and then you had to back things up into the cloud and then you had to re download it in order to put it into your new document. And I lost so much work. I was backing everything up, but sometimes it would overwrite an old file or something would happen and I would miss and mess up my work. And you guys know it's heartbreaking to lose even 1,000 words. And once I lost 30,000 words and it just broke my heart. And I thought, never again. And I know things have come a long way since then. And there are a lot of other softwares that do have different online capabilities than they had back in 2010. But I started using Google Docs at that point because it was so easy. As long as I have my Google login information, I could use my husband's phone, I could use my mother in law's computer, I could use my laptop, or I could use my own phone, or I could be at this computer. And it didn't matter because it all was online based and it was easy to access from anywhere. And for me, that was such a game changer. The other piece of it that was so big for me is that I had a severe frustration working with timelines when it came to my editors and my critique partners and my beta readers. So, as authors, we get lots of feedback on our work. But if you are sending someone a Word document, for example, and they're using track changes and they're marking everything up, I couldn't see what they were doing as they were working on it. So I had to pass it over to them, wait for them to completely finish reading it, give all their feedback, which could take a week or longer before they would head it back to me. And then if I had five people all doing that, I would have to take all five documents, open them one at a time, go through every single comment, and try to add any changes into my main document. And that ability or that process of trying to put together comments from 5 or 6 different people into one document and make sure that I didn't miss anything was extremely time consuming. And as someone who is always working to the last minute on my deadlines, that just didn't work for me. With Google Docs, I could have them commenting on the same document. Plus, I can be working on the document at the same time that my beta readers are working on it. So at this point, when I'm close to the wire with my edits and other things like that, I can get the first 5 chapters completely edited and I can share that Google Doc with all of my critique partners or my editor or whoever I'm working with, usually beta readers these days first, and they can go ahead and start reading while I'm working on chapter 6. And I can leave them a note inside the document that says, "Stop here, I'm not ready yet." And then they can text me and say, "Okay, I'm at the point," or they can leave a little comment, "Left off here," whatever. And we can both be working on it, or all 5 of us be working in that same document at the same time. And then when I finish my edits, rather than having to wait for them to finish reading it, I can go ahead and be putting in their changes as they're finishing. And it just sped up the process by sometimes weeks. And that was such a game changer for me as well. The other big thing is that they could all be commenting on the same document. So I can see conversations between them where beta reader number 1 might say, "Oh, this really confused me," or "I didn't like the way this was." And then beta reader 2, when they get to that point, they can be like, "I actually liked this for this and this and this reason." And then I can see their conversations about whether they feel this should change, what their reasons are behind it. And then we make sure nobody's missing anything and we see everyone's opinions on it, which is very, very helpful for me as a writer. And it's helpful for them as beta readers because they don't have to mark a typo if somebody else already marked it. They don't have to mark something. They could just put agree. And it just made the whole process faster for them and for me. And those are the main reasons I love Google Docs as a writer. The biggest downside to Google Docs is the speed. So as your document gets bigger, it slows down. And you can actually like exit the document, refresh, go back into it, and it will usually speed up for a while. And it is better here in 2026 than it was in 2012. The tabs feature that we're going to go over today has also made that a lot better because my most recent document has over 120,000 words before it started to slow down. But that is probably the biggest downside to it. So if that slowing of the document really bothers you, right now it is still an issue once you get past maybe 60,000 words, or if you want to add those extra tabs, maybe around 100,000 words, the document is going to slow. Now, I know that a lot of people also have fears about Google owning your work or being able to do stuff with it or other things like that. I have extensively read the terms of service, talked to my lawyer about it. I'm not personally concerned about it, so I'm not even going to get into that because I don't believe that they're stealing work or that they own your work in any way. So if you have different beliefs or different feelings about it, you can read the Google terms of service that I'll link down below and make a decision for yourself. But if you want to use Google Docs, it is a totally free, totally online program that you can use to write your books. So let's take a look at how to set it up, how I use it as an author, and how to make it really aesthetic and fun to write in. Oh, yay. Okay. Can you tell I love this? This makes me so happy. So this is just a quick look at my most recently finished book. This is my 31st novel, A Mirror of Shadows. And I worked inside this single Google Doc for an entire year. And as I was looking through all of these different tabs, I realized there's probably more like 220,000 words in here because there's multiple versions. But in the past with Google Docs, they had an outline feature over here on the left side of the page where if you marked anything as a header or a subtitle, it would add it to the outline, which was always helpful and it would help you navigate through your document. But I believe they added this late 2024 is these document tabs. And with this, it basically creates miniature documents that are separate inside your main document. So it used to be with the outline, you couldn't print things differently unless you selected out the pages. But with this, I could actually just print only this one episode 1 separately. I can also move it around. So I could move it down below and I could do it sort of out of order. Now, as a puzzler or someone who likes to put my brainstorming, my research notes, scenes that I'm not sure where they're going to fit, I like to have all of that in my writing process. This was such a game changer because I can now write out of order. You'll notice these little X emojis, best version yet. This was one of the versions of the book that I liked. Then I had another version where I restarted an old outline. I have, this one says cells because I had one version of the book that I started them out in these prison cells. This one says who knows because it was also just like a bunch of random thoughts. I can keep that all in one document, but you may have already noticed that it is very slow. That is because it has over 200,000 words in this document. It didn't start slowing down though until I probably had around 150, 160,000 words now that I think about it. So it's better than it used to be if you use the tabs, but just be aware of that slowing down. So I was able to keep track of my document. Then when I would edit it or restart it, I could just start a new tab. Then when I was reading this live on YouTube, so I read this as a serialized novel. So I would take my current version that I have over here and I would grab episode 1. I would just copy everything from episode 1, move it to a new tab. All I had to do was click this little plus sign up here in the left corner and start a new tab. Then I would just have that one basic chapter to edit and get ready to go, which would be so great because then I could send it to, I didn't use beta readers for this in the initial stages because I was just reading it live on YouTube. But if I were, I could have just sent them and said, only read episode 1. And then they have it here in this one single tab. So this looks like a bit of a mess, but it actually is really, really cool, this outlining version of it. So inside this document, like I said, it's a bit of a mess. I have an editing brain dump, which is just all my thoughts on how to edit. I have restarts. I've marked X's on all the ones that I ended up throwing out or not using. I have my outline here. I have my blurb in here. I have a whole section on world building and research, a section on characters, story brainstorm. And then I have each episode individually, which is kind of like each chapter individually. And then I have the full current version as well, which is all 13 of those chapters in one single like tab. So gives you a little bit of an overview. When I set up just a plain Google Doc, it's pretty simple. So you just go to File and New, and all you have to have in order to create a Google Doc is a Gmail or Google account, and then it's free from there. Just make sure that you know what that password is, because if you get locked out of your Google account, you will lose all of your stuff. So that has happened to a friend of mine that had a Google account. She couldn't find her password and forgot what it was, and she lost some of her work. And really, as writers, that's the main thing we're trying to do, is make sure that we don't lose work, that we know where it is, that it's backed up and it's safe. And Google Docs for me, I have never lost anything, but if you lost your password, it would be pretty devastating. So make sure you know what that password is. But when you first start a brand new document, of course, you can give it a title over here. So we could just call it brand new book. And then it's pretty plain. Everything is like left justified. It starts with Arial text here in terms of the font, and then it gives you an option to start your first tab. So when you're doing these tabs here, you can just go to the 3 dots and you can click rename. So I could just name this chapter 1 if I wanted to, and then you can add in any emoji that's already here. So I could put book here and we could put a little book emoji. And if you want to style this in some way, just like any word processor, you have a million different options. So if you wanted to, you could just put a heading. We could say heading 1, which just makes it at 20-point font. If you don't like Arial or you want to use something pretty for your titles, you could just grab something like this impact one. And then of course you can center it here, this little formatting tool. It's very similar to Word or any other. I know these are kind of basics here, but we're going to ramp it up. So you could just call it chapter 1. And then if you wanted to, you could add some little flair to it. So you could make it a little bigger if you wanted to. You could also, of course, change the font. If you don't like any of the free fonts that come automatically, you can also click on more fonts, and you can upload a few others that they have in the Google Fonts categories. You can also upload your own fonts to Google if you would like to use them here as well. So one of the things I like to do to make this a little prettier is to go into highlight color, and you can just highlight this, which makes it look a little nicer. And then once you have a heading set up the way that you want, you can just click heading 1 or whichever one you were using. And then when you hover over it, there's this little command here to update heading 1 to match, which at that point will change all of the headings inside your tab. So once you change this heading, it's going to change it across all of your tabs. There are some other settings, however, that if you change it in one tab, it's not going to change it in the other tab, and we'll go over that when we're setting up our new document and things like that. Another way that you can kind of make this a little bit fancier if you want to make this pretty is you can actually highlight your chapter and you can go into format and go into paragraph styles and borders and shading. And you could add a little border around this, or you could add a little underline. So sometimes what I do is I'll go into position and just click this bottom underline and I'll make it a little thicker. Let's say 2.25. You can make it a dotted line or a dash. We can do the dot here. And then you can change the color. So I could make this a dark purple for my purple book. You could also do a similar highlight where you do a little color and you could make some padding. And when you click apply, you can see that it's got this big like dash and a highlight and all of that around it if you wanted to. So there's a few things that you can do here. You can also add images if you want and make it look a little bit more like a book. When I am creating my regular, just plain basic document, pretty much all I do is set up a heading 1. I usually will set up a heading 2 for my POVs. So let's say my character is Bex for this chapter. I will make this a lot smaller. So maybe like a 12-point font. And sometimes I will change to a different font. Like I like Lotto is one that I enjoy. And then I'll set up heading 2 to match so that all of these are my POVs. And I will leave that either left justified, or I will sometimes center it if I want to. But remember, any changes that you make, to go in and click heading to match. Then I will just write. The only other thing I do is I will usually add an indent. So I'll grab this top little dash here and either bring it to 0.25 or 0.19, depending on how much indent I want. And that'll basically just indent that first word of the top line. And then I will start typing. That's pretty much the basics of a Google Doc. When you want to work with your critique partners, you would go up here to the share button and you would just click share. You would put in their email addresses, leave them a little note about, hey, here's my most current document. Read the first 2 chapters. Let me know what you think. And then when they come in here, they can just highlight something and click on this little add comment, and they can start adding some new comments like, love this name. And then as you go through the document, you can just click whether you resolve it, or you can comment on their comment. You can leave emojis, different things like that. You can also turn on something similar to track changes and stuff like that, so you can see all the changes that a document has gone through. So there's lots of tools like that. But I like to make my document a little bit prettier, use more headings, use more colors, just because it makes me happy to have a document. If you guys have been around this channel for a while, you know that in my planners, I like to decorate as much as possible. So those are just the basics of a Google Doc. But if you want to create something that has a little more flair to it, I have created for you this really cool document. And what I'm going to do is I am going to basically take this Google Docs novel template and I'm going to set it up step by step with my next book, which is called A Throne of Thorns. And so you can just follow me like a tutorial, but I'll also explain to you how I did this so that if you don't want to use my template because maybe it's too many things or it's too much decor, you can still set it up for yourself. So if you join my newsletter list, you will be able to find inside there this Heart Breathing's Google Docs novel template. And all you have to do is file and make a copy, and this will make a base copy for yourself so that you can edit this and use it however you want. So then I've got a bunch of links here. All these little links are for different Canva image templates. So I've got the background here. I have a book mock-up. I have a vision board for you. I've got headers and various other things like character cards and things like that. So any of these that you want to use as we go through, you can just click on this and it should take you out to Canva. You will need to have a Canva account. So that is free to make. Some of the images inside Canva are AI. AI, so you can turn that off and filter them out if you don't want to use AI images. Some of the images in Canva are in their premium package, so you would need to have a paid subscription, but a lot of them are free for you to use, or you can upload your own images. So I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 different things for you, and I'm just going to take you through this step by step, tab by tab. So each of these tabs on the left side, the first one is something you can just delete once you've used these, like you've made it your own, but this is just my instructions to you. The second one, of course, is for the book. So I just called it My Best-Selling Novel, but you could change this. So you would just go to the three dots and click rename and change it to your own book title if you want. There's spot for a vision board, and there's a spot for your blurb, and there is a spot here for a style sheet. If you've never used a style sheet, it's kind of similar to using a series Bible, but it's something that sometimes an editor will create for you that will help you stay consistent across a series or across a book as you're working on it. So the types of things that I keep in my style sheet, this is separate from my series Bible, but I do also have style sheets, is anything about characters. So what are their nicknames? What are they known as? What do they look like? Any of these kind of things. What are their relationships to some of the other characters? I also will keep track of location names. So Winter Haven is the name of Priestess Winter's castle. I'll keep a track of that, and then I will paste in here any of the descriptions that I had of that castle. What does the brick look like, et cetera, et cetera. And then even just like Sir Bean Cafe or Harper's Bedroom, all of that gets a place in my style sheet so that I can stay consistent in my descriptions. Word choice is things more like what words are often capitalized, or what do I call this group of girls, or do I have a certain name for the popular clique, or, you know, anything like that. So in my Shadow Demon saga, there are primas, and they are the first in the line of the Shadow Demon's gates. And so I always capitalize that. So in here, I would always put like the prima, the way that it is, and say always capitalized, so that I have a note here of this is the style. There's also women that are sort of turned into wraiths in my fantasy world, so I call those hunters. So I would keep track of all of that so that as I'm working on the book or as my editor's going through it, they can look for those consistencies. And this is a great place to keep track of it now that you can really keep track of it inside your different tabs in your Google Doc. Now, if your Google Doc starts to slow down, you could also separate out your research and other things from your actual writing. So you could have one template that is, or one doc that is all of your brainstorming research style sheet, and then a separate one that is the novel itself. But it should hold out for a while before it starts to slow down. Then there's also a section here for world building. I did not really build this out because I ran out of time, but I did just put in here some topics that you might want to explore in your own world building. Like, what's the history of the place? What's the culture? Any conflicts or war? What does the geography look like? The economics, the language, the politics, the population, magic system, technology. And you could build this out any way that you want. If you do get super detailed about the world building, if you're doing a fantasy world or a science fiction world or a dystopian world, contemporary romances and contemporary worlds have world building too, but maybe not quite as extensively as a fantasy world. You may, like I said, consider having a separate doc, and then you could just have a folder inside your Google Drive that has all of your stuff relating to that series world. So just think about the way that you want to format this, or if you want to keep it all in one document, just keeping in mind that if you put too much into one, it will eventually slow down. So you could add anything here that you want, and I'm going to show you how to build this and how to make it look like this in just a minute. There's a characters tab that I just put a cover on, like here's my character sheets. On these character sheets, I have style heading for heading 1 here for these characters. Then I also have the same things that are inside my how to plot your novel about these characters. So age, eye color, hair color, height. If you have already put that into a style sheet, you might not need it on this character sheet, totally up to you. Then you've got these boxes to fill in that are the same as the questions from How to Plot Your Novel. If you haven't seen that series, I made it back in 2018, I believe, when I first started my YouTube channel, but I will link that for you down below. I am going to be redoing that series, so some of this questions might change, but these are just some good things to know. Now, I actually wouldn't fill this out in the same way for book 2 of my series with the same characters, but for the first book in a series, I would. So you've got questions like, what's their deepest desire? But what happened in their past that hurt them? What do they now believe to be true about themselves? A lot of character arc notes. Also, where is your character at the beginning of the series? Where are they at the middle? And where are they at the end in terms of their internal character arc? And then there's a little table here to fill out their goal, motivation, and conflict according to their outer desire versus their inner desire. So you could change this, shift it, make it whatever you want. I have 2 character sheets here, and I'll show you how to use them and how to add more when we go through the tutorial. There's a section here for research. I know some of you love your research, so you could put different tabs and other things in here. You can see that like when I click on this character, because I have added them as headings, they're showing up in the outline as well. So I can say, here's Shannon's card, here's Josh's card. I can move to the research, and inside research, I have this little bit on owning a bakery, but it just makes it really easy to navigate through your document. And you could add as many things into research as you want. The outline itself is organized according to a 4-act structure. So this again is the same thing from my How to Plot Your Novel series. So you could change this to Save the Cat or whatever types of plotting things that you use. But if you've used my printable, this is the same questions like argument against transformation, the stakes, the first doorway, Act 2, into the new world, tests and challenges, the midpoint, and so on. Then there's also a section down here at the bottom for any more random story ideas or brainstorming. Then we have a section here called index cards. So for those of you that like to plot, you've got room here so far for 18 index cards if you would like. And this follows my How to Write Great Scenes series, which I will also link for you down below, where when I make index cards for my books, I put a few different things. Up here at the top, I either will color code this according to which character. So if you're writing a single POV where you only have one POV character, you don't need to note whose POV it is. If you're writing a romance with 2 points of view, you would need to say on here, are we in Shannon's point of view or Josh's? And there's a couple ways you can do that. For one, you could highlight it as like Shannon's color is red and Josh is blue. So you could highlight it according to POV character, or you could just put their name out to the side, kind of whatever you want to do. Then in the overview, I will put an overview of what's happening in the scene, like Josh and Shannon meet at the bakery, just something very simple. Then I'll put the conflict of the scene, meaning whatever is happening in the scene that is keeping your character from getting their goal or getting the information they wanted, or is making your character's life harder. What is the conflict? And then the outcome here is, how does the scene end? And the outcome is part of how I start to chain scenes together. So let's say the outcome is Josh gets upset and starts a fight with the ex-boyfriend. Shannon walks out. The outcome is Shannon walks out. So then I would think, okay, what happens next then? If Shannon's upset, Josh knows he made a mistake. Maybe chapter 2 is we go into Josh's point of view, and the overview is Josh apologizes to Shannon. The conflict is that he's feeling very guilty because his anger has been a problem in the past and he's afraid to get close to anybody because he gets too angry. The outcome is that he apologizes, which makes him realize that he really cares about this girl. Could be anything like that. But once you know the conflict and the outcome, you can start to really see what happens in the next scene and the next scene. And what's cool about seeing it in this view is you can see very clearly what's happening across multiple chapters and multiple scenes at once. I am going to try to delete all of that so that it's just a plain outline here for you, but it gives you that idea. And I'll show you a little bit of tricks about this because you can't move these around and you can't put too much in here or it will push it to the next page, but I'll give you some tips on that when we go into the actual tutorial. And then, of course, you want to actually write your book. That's the main thing. And like I said, if you've got a lot of stuff in these other tabs, you may want to start a new Google Docs that has just your writing in it, like draft one, draft two, draft three, or you can put it all in one document. So when you're writing your book, you can keep it plain, like that brand new book that we were talking about over here, or you can spice it up a little bit, put some images, put some headers, put some chapter breaks and other things like that. And this is so fun because Google Docs is very customizable and it's just my love language. I super love it. So let me show you, if I were you and I was getting this template for free, how would I then take it and customize it to my own book? So one of the first things that you're going to do is actually go into each of these links and you're going to customize all of the images, because a big part of what is making this doc look so pretty or aesthetic or whatever is that we've got images and colors and things like that. So you'll want to take it and make it to your own personal brand. So all you have to do to update this mood board is to go into uploads or into elements and start finding photos that you want to substitute in. And then there's quotes in here like mood, friends to lovers. You could change that to mood, vampires at midnight, like whatever your particular series is. Then you can just very quickly, let's say you do have a vampire series, you could search for vampire and then go into photos. Anything in Canva that has this little crown means that it's a premium image and you can only use it if you are subscribed to Canva. I am, but if you're not, then you'll want to look for images that don't have that. So let's say you really liked this one. You can start to completely change the vibe of this over here by just simply taking any of these images and dragging and dropping them. And then you can just click on them and move them over to where they're the way that you want them to be. You can also take these boxes, and when you click on it, you'll see a color up here. So you could change it, and you could change it to one of the colors that already appears in your thing, or you can change it to your own brand or whatever you want to. I'm not going to go through the process of making this whole new mood board because I already have one for my next book. So we'll just import it when we get to that point. You have a couple of options too. So one is that you could make the mood board and then go ahead and put it into your doc, or you could just make all of your images so they're all ready to go. And that's what I'm actually going to do, is I'm going to click on each one of these Canva templates and I'm going to start changing things. Now, actually, because this is my template, I need to go back so I don't mess up you guys' template. So we're going to revert that back. The first thing you'll actually do is you won't be able to edit this. So you'll need to go to File, and then you'll need to say make a copy. And then that will prompt you to have your own version of it. And you'll see that it's now titled Copy of Watermark Background. So I could change this to ATOT, which is a Throne of Thorns. Now my book is very different from this sort of cafe bakery romance. So once you have the template, you'll want to change it to your own aesthetic. So very simple to do. Go to File, make a copy, rename it so that it's in your own Canva and you're able to edit it. Then you click on the back color. You can see is this brown color. I want to change this to something that matches my vibe of my new book, which is kind of like a navy blue. So I'm going to move it to navy blue, but let's say I don't really want that exact color. I want it to be a little bit lighter. I can play around with this color until I like the way it looks. So let's say we're going to put it here, this sort of blue background that will frame my Google Doc the way that this one does here. Then I don't want the hearts. Hearts are not going to work for this sort of death games thing I've got going on. So I can go into elements and I can search for something else. So my book is very magic based. So maybe I could search for like stars or something. And most of the time I'm going to look in this graphics section. And let's say some of these are super cute, but you can try to think which one kind of matches the vibe. So this one is kind of cool. I try to keep mine in the corners so that it's not all over the back. Like if I were to put it in the middle like this, then as I'm typing, this would be in the background. You could do that like a watermark and make it really transparent so that you've got stars all over the back of your book. That would be cool. But I'm just going to put some little stars in the background. And actually, just to make this take a little bit less time, I have already created all of these images. but you can change the colors of these if you want to. You can make them that same blue. You can make them a little bit more transparent and just play around with it until you have a watermark background that you like, and then move on to the next image. So the next image is the chapter image header. So remember when we were up here in the writing section and pretending this is not a real romance, even though I do have my own name on the front of this cover. I just made this cover in Canva. This is a pretend love story between a model and a man who owns a bakery and a coffee shop. So I put this little cute little coffee cup. For a mirror of shadows and a throne of thorns, the shadow games, I am actually going to use something. Let's see, I forget even what I chose. Let me go into my little Google Doc. Oh, a throne of thorns. I'm going to use actually a crown for this. So when we move into the chapter header image, all you would have to do is remember, go to File and then click Make a Copy. And then you can add any element that you want. For the chapter headers, I like to use something black and white, but you could also use something in color. This is mostly, you could print it out, but mostly this is just going to be an online document. So you shouldn't have to worry too much about like adding too much to your file. But like for the crown, for example, I could do something colorful, or I could do a black and white crown. And something like this, like the scribbly one, isn't going to show up as well as something more like this one. So I'm going to delete this, and I could look at this and see if that would look good as a chapter header or not. If I liked it, I might make it a little bit more transparent so it's not quite so bold, or I might go looking around and kind of playing with maybe this one, or et cetera, until I found a crown that I liked. And then once I found one, I would just click File and Download, or you can go to Share and click Download, and I download it as a PNG. So that is the chapter header. Then the next one is the text divider. So this is basically like a page break, right? If you're changing POVs or you have a scene break inside, you can add any kind of little flourish. So here we added a little heart that matched the contemporary romance vibe. For mine, I might go into elements and I might type something like flourish page break. I'm going to spell it wrong, much to my son's chagrin, who just won the spelling bee. Flourish page break. And so then when you click on graphics, you can see lots of these. So I can't remember if I can just do like this. No, it's not going to move over. So you have to actually delete this one and then pick the one that you like, and then you can make it as big as you want it to be. And then again, if you wanted to, you could just add transparency to it and things like that. Sometimes if you're using a premium image, which this is, it won't let you download it because it will say you're not allowed to download something that doesn't have an additional design on it. So that's why you'll see I have like an invisible little A here so that I can download and use this design, because I'm only using it for personal use anyway. But that's kind of a little trick there. Then you've got banners. So these are the banners that appear at the top of some of the pages, like the research page, for example, this little banner that says research. I have ones that say Act 1, 2, 3, and 4, random story ideas, and research, but you can go in and change this to the colors that you want to use. So I might go back and use that navy blue that we were talking about. And you can, if you click one, you can click change all, and it'll change all of your banners. Then let's say we don't want the coffee cup, but we want some kind of little like magical stars or something like that. Then I could just delete the coffee cup and instead put in maybe this little flourish to the sides, something like this. And you can turn it around. You can add as much if you wanted. If I really liked stars, I could add a bunch of them to these documents. It's pretty much any kind of graphic you want to create. Also, if you don't like the thickness of this, you want something thicker, or you want something without a background, you could also make this background white and then download it with a white background, so it's just the text header. Pretty much the sky's the limit to whatever it is you want to do. And actually, again, I have to remind myself that I'm editing the one that I'm giving to you, so I got to go back to the base file. Just make sure that you click make a copy first to be able to use it. Then the next thing that we have is the character card. So with this, it's basically just a background and then a photo. So if you have already some pictures that you've taken off of Pinterest or something like that that are inspo, like celebrity pictures or other things like that, you can totally use that sort of thing for your own personal use in your private Google Doc. Just be careful with image rights that you're not using like celebrity photos or pictures that you got off Pinterest for, like I'm using Pinterest photos for my like mood board, but you wouldn't want to take that mood board and try to sell it to people or post it a lot on social media if you don't own those rights. So just always be aware of images and your rights to use them. But for your own personal use, you can really, sky's the limit there. But I could take gradients. I could use that same navy blue color. I could use something different. I could use one color for my heroine and one color for my hero, but you can basically change all of that stuff. And then all you have to do when you find a picture, you could either go like, to find this picture of the guy, I just think I searched for like male baker or something like that. And then I went into photos and I was like, oh, that guy looks cute. Let's use him. But you might, of course, want to go down that rabbit hole and spend a lot more time like trying to figure out what your baker guy looks like. But any picture you find, you can just drag and drop it over. Or if you have an idea of what your character looks like, and you've grabbed it from Pinterest or you've drawn it yourself or anything like that, you can, I think I do have some character pictures in here somewhere. You can just grab it from Pinterest and you can upload it in this section that says uploads, and then you can drag and drop your own photo that you grabbed and use that. So those are the character cards that we're going to use on these character pages over here. And then research, let's see what else is on here. Next, we have the book cover mock-up. So many of you may already have a professional book cover that you've had made, like I do for A Throne of Thorns, but you also can make your own book cover inside Canva. So I'm going to click File and Make a Copy. Canva has so many book cover ideas in here. So in order to get your book cover, you could, of course, just use this one and change it out to your own name or title, but also you can click on Design, and it's going to be pre-filled here with novel book cover, but you could also change this to a fantasy book cover or mystery book cover or whatever your genre is, and it's going to give you a lot of potential designs here. So let's say that you were writing a fantasy and you don't really like this as much, but you like this one. When you click on it, you can say, I want to replace the current page or add as a new page. So we're just going to replace the current page. Of course, there might be some rules inside Canva about images you can actually use on your book cover that you're going to sell, but you can use any of these for your own personal use. So then it will also give you some more ideas of other book covers. You might look through and be like, oh, but I like this one better. Let's use that, or, whatever. Then you can come in and you can change these to match your own colors, your own title. So you could change this to whatever you want it to be, and you can change this to your own name. And some of these elements move, so you could move this couple out and you could put in something you drew, whatever you want. And then once you have it, you can also create a little book cover mock-up. So the way that you can do this is to actually, well, once this one's here, there's a couple things you need to do. So the first thing you need to do is go to Share and then click Download as a PNG. Just this first page. So I would download the first page so that I have the image of the book cover saved, and that's going to download. I'm going to just save it. Then I will go to Uploads, and I'm going to take that same thing. So you come to this little mock-up that you have here and you just drag and drop it, and now it's going to add your new book cover to this mock-up where it looks like it's on a paperback. If you wanted to create your own mock-up that is a little bit different, like a hardcover or something like that, you can actually go inside Elements. You can say book cover mock-up, and down here in frames, you'll find some of them where you could just like click on this one and then move that book cover over, and it gives you a mock-up of kind of like a textbook looking one and so on. So you can play around with that feature as much as you want until you have some book covers. Then we have the document tab covers. Again, you can click File and Make a Copy, and you can, in this one, for example, this would be just like a potential cover that has your mood board as well as the book cover on it. The second one is this one that has, like, I put friends to lovers, but you could put any tagline or trope that you're using here. Goal of how many words. You can change the color of the background to whatever you want it to be. Add your book cover. Then I have one that says character sheets, one that says working outline, and then any page, like if you were making a page about the magic system, you could create your own cover for it. So then we've just got this one final image, and this is the cork board. So the cork board is not vertical, it is horizontal, because that gives you more space that you can see. So the cork board, basically you want to leave the cork board the same way it is, but it does have this little background. Right now it's white, but if you wanted to make it like purple or blue or whatever to match your cover, then you could do that. And that is the final design. So what I did is I created a folder on my computer called A Throne of Thorns Google Docs. And I took all of those images that I just had you create, and I created them to match my own cover and my own vibe. And I put them all in one folder so that as I'm going through and changing this template, then I can make it customized to myself. I am gonna try to take my own stuff out of it. Apologize if you get this template and it has stuff in it. So once you've got all of your images and you're ready to update this for yourself, you'll go to File, make a copy, or you may have already made a copy for yourself. And instead of calling this Google Docs template, you would call it your book, right? So like A Throne of Thorns draft 1 or research draft or whatever it may be, and you would make that copy. This is going to open up your new document, but with all of my stuff in it. And let's take this how to edit and use it and just move that to the bottom, because we're not going to need that as much anymore. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to use those images you just created and make it your own inside this document. So I've made it super easy for you right now. All you have to do is click on this first image, right click it, and choose replace image, and you can say upload from computer. Then that you're going to go into that folder that you just looked at. You're going to find the image that has your like goal on it, and you're going to double click it, and it will just automatically put your own cover, your own vibes. So mine has this mock-up from my amazing cover designer, Raven, and my tagline for this is trust no throne, like trust no one, but trust no throne. My goal is 75K words. Then for this background here, for this image, for the vision board, I need to change out the vision board, and I need to change out the background of this watermark. So there's a couple things I'm going to do. First, I'm going to click on the image of the vision board, and then I'm going to find my mood board and replace it. Super, super easy. Then I'm also going to come over here, and I'm going to go to Insert, Page Elements, Watermark. So the background where we've got this border and all of that stuff is called a watermark. So I'm going to go again to Insert, Page Elements, Watermark, which brings up this side board over here. You can see the image over on the right. All I need to do is click this Edit Image button, click Browse, and it's going to allow me to upload my page background that I created. And now it's going to change it, and it won't just change it on that page. It's going to change it on every page in this tab. But you'll notice over here, it didn't change it on this tab. It only changed it on this first tab. So the watermark does not carry across tabs like the same way that a title or whatever will. So that's basically it. That's easy. That's how you do it. This little underline here that is under blurb, this is heading 2. And again, the way that I did that was format, paragraph styles, border, and shading. If you don't like that, all you have to do to get rid of it is just click this bottom border and apply, and it'll take it off. If you wanted to add a different kind of title, you can just change it the way that I did in that early one. And then you can add in your own blurb. Inside the style sheet, if you have a lot of characters, all you have to do is just take your cursor and select it and click Control C or Command C, depending on what you're in, and just put your cursor on another line and click Control Paste. And then if you know you have 10 characters, you can just add in 10 characters. Same thing with this other table is you can just go in and select it, copy it, and then find another space and just add as many locations as you want. The only trick about tables is, as you can see on this one, it's going to spill over to the next page unless you go in and you sort of force it on or do a page break. But this way you can keep all of that in one document. You can have all your characters on a style sheet, all of your research, everything else. I'm going to create a new tab down here, and I'm just going to show you if you wanted to recreate this outside of the template. Here's how you do the background image is you go to Insert Image, Upload from your computer, and then you can click the image that you want to use. That is going to put it sort of in the middle of your document. So now you would click on the image and go to Image Options, which is going to bring up this table over on the side. And you're going to go to make sure that the lock aspect ratio is on. And then I go to text wrapping and say break text. Then I am going to go to position and say fix position on the page. Select this top left layout so that it moved it from the center up to the top corner. And then I'm going to give it 0 like padding or anything. And I'm just going to drag it to the edge. And now I have my image that is taking over the entire page. So if you want to create that from scratch, that's how you do that. And then from this same document, if we do a little page break and we have another document, here's how you do the watermark page. You can make any letter size background or whatever, and you just go to Insert, Page Elements, Watermark. And then over here you have the option to select an image, and you just go to your page background that you created and do that same basic thing that we just did with the image, except you want to unclick the word faded because you can see that it's making it a watermark in the background. And then you want to go to More Image Options and Position. Choose that top left corner, change the X and Y to 0, and then drag and drop. And then that now, every time you create a new page, will have that watermark every single new page that you make. So just a little tutorial there on how to make those backgrounds for yourself. Okay, so that is the best-selling novel one. For the characters now, you're going to come in and same thing that we did before. You right-click and click Replace Image and change it to your own character sheet 1. Then again, for each tab, we're going to have to change that watermark. So we go to Insert Page Elements Watermark, and we're going to just click on Edit Image and change it to that page background. Then you also have your character card here. So you can right click on that, click Upload from Computer, and find your character's card. This character is not named Shannon. Her name is Bex, but also I don't want this brown anymore, right? So in order to change this to my own color, I'm going to click on Format, Paragraph Styles, Border and Shading, and I'm just going to change this border color to my own custom blue, and then I'm going to change the background color to a lighter blue, and that just changed it now for that. But this is, let's see, this is heading 1, so I'm going to go in and say update heading 1 to match, so that it's going to automatically change it for all of my characters. See how this one's changed too? Now we also have these little boxes that are in our table that are also brown. So what we can do is right click and choose Table Options, and down here on the left side or right side, it's going to be a little box that says color. So I'm just going to change the color. This one takes a little bit of time because you're going to have to click into every single box and change this color to blue. If anybody knows of a way to change them all, let me know. But right now, the only way I know to do it is to click on each one, and that goes for every character. So if a little tip from me to you, if you want to make these pages for lots of characters, make sure first that you go ahead and change the main pages to the color you want them to be before you start copying them. So we've got all our character notes and the tables and everything is now blue. Then I would come into this other character and I would replace this with the male character's card, and I would change this to his name. And then I would also go through and change all of these to blue. Now, if you had another, let's say a third character, the best way to duplicate a Google Docs page is just to drag all the way up so that you've selected the entire page, and then click copy. either Command C or Control C, and then go down to the next blank page and click Command V, which is your paste. And now you can do that as many times as you want. I like to put a page break in between them. So once I get down here, I would click Control Shift, which gives me a page break, and then I could add a third, fourth character and just go in and change this stuff. So make sure if you're doing, like, let's say 4 or 5 characters, that you copy and paste the blank thing exactly as you want it, so that you're not like having to rewrite their deepest desire and all of that each time. All right, in the research section, again, we have a couple things to change. You by now know how to do this. We go insert, page elements, watermark, change this image to the page background. Click done. This research, again, we're going to click replace image, upload from computer, and you're going to find your one that says research. Actually, I don't think I have one. Yes, I do. And then maybe I would change this too. So this is heading 1 over here. So I would change this potentially to something blue, and then maybe take this to be like gladiators or whatever other research I'm doing. But basically you can customize that page as you want. The outline, again, we're going to just change this image to the one that we created that says outline. And then again, I'm not going to go through this process because I think by now you get it, but you can just change the background, change this image, change all of these boxes to the color that you want them to be. If you want to change the text, you just select the text and change it. So if you wanted it to be Save the Cat, you could make it like that, and you can make this into your own outline. For the index cards, you can leave obviously this white background, or again, I'm going to change mine to blue. So I'm going to go to page, insert, page elements, watermark, and I'm going to change my little cork board to blue instead of white. Simple change, but makes all the difference in your little branding. And now we have what is basically a table that is going to wrap as I add text to it. So I'm just going to show you kind of what happens to it, because you might have to make some shifts and changes. So in the overview, I might write something like Bex arrives at the castle to meet the queen. The conflict here is she's afraid for her life and is now, I'm just making this up, and is now expected to fight in the games as a pawn. So as I'm adding stuff to this, you can see the index card is getting bigger. So the outcome might be she's told that if she doesn't get in line, she'll be sent to the dungeons. So now I've got this bigger index card, and as I adjusted this one for chapter 1, it's going to naturally change chapters 2 and 3 because they're all in one table together. If I put enough stuff here, eventually it is going to push this chapter 7, 8, and 9 onto its own page. And if I didn't put enough, it's going to split them. So you just want to keep in mind to either make sure that you either keep your messages on the index card very succinct so that you don't go over the page, or if you want to, if you're using this much stuff, you could take this and right click and just say delete the row, and then you have only 6 per page instead of 9 per page. So you might want to adjust that. I do want to show you from scratch how to create this though, in case you want to make it yourself. So if you go to add tab, basically when we say we're going to format page orientation, you can do portrait, which is the way we are when we're writing our book, but landscape gives us that wider view, which I thought was perfect for corkboard. And of course, if you want to use the actual corkboard look, you would go to insert, page elements, watermark, and put that corkboard in for yourself. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so once your corkboard is there, now we need to insert a table, and it looks like there's 3 across and 3 down, but really there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 across. So when we're creating the table, we go to insert table, and we're going to do 5 across, And I always have to count, I think it's 5 down as well. So we're going to do a 5 by 5, and it's just going to look like this. And the first thing we're going to do is actually just go ahead and select all of them, and we're going to fill them. So you want to go to this little paint bucket, and we're going to make them white. Now, if you wanted to make your index cards pink, you could just make them whatever color in the fill line. Then also we are going to go to table options, and we're going to make the table border white as well so that it's not really showing up, and I'm going to put it at 0 point. Here's where you can also say I want the cell background color to be blue or pink or white or whatever you want it to be. So here's our basic table. I want to take these middle ones, and we're going to actually make those transparent. So these are kind of our like buffers in between. And then we're also going to take these middle ones and make them transparent. And that way we've got kind of our buffers in between the cells. But now we have to make them prettier, right? So this is a little bit tricky because we want to try to make them a little bit even. So you have to just kind of play around with your widths until you have what looks to be kind of like even index cards. So let's say that's good enough, and then you can make them bigger until you feel like they're all the same. In order, there's probably a better way to do this, don't laugh at me, but in order to make them the way that I wanted to, the fastest way that I could do it was I just measured it on a piece of paper and held it up to the screen. Don't laugh at me, but this looks pretty good. This isn't too bad. Then all you have to do is write on the index card. I did go ahead up at the top and move it just a little bit so they weren't justified so far to the left side of the index card. So I just sort of gave each one of those columns an indent. And then I also put in this little emoji with the pen because it just looks kind of cute. And then you can type in whatever you want on your index card. So that is how you create it if you want to create it from scratch. Or of course you can just use the one that I used and just be careful about how much you're putting into each one. And I think this is a really cool feature to be able to do this now and make it look like a cork board. All right, and then finally we're into the actual writing of the book. So remember that I wanted a crown here, so I would just click on this image and say replace image, upload from computer, and I'm going to grab my crown header. And now I've got chapter 1. And of course you can change your headers to be any header you want, any font you want. I've got my names here, so I could change this to my character. And then you've got your writing, and you can, again, this to make it styled like this, I just selected all of the text and I went into line and paragraph spacing, and I changed it to 1.5 spacing, which just gives it a little bit more space on the page. But if you didn't want it to look like that, you could of course change it to something like 1.5 or 1.15 or 2 point or whatever, however you want it. And then once you get it the way you want it to, you select this and then go to normal text and click update text to match, and it's going to change your whole document. Same thing with this little header. I can just click replace image, and I can put my own little flourish or whatever in here for page breaks. And that is basically how I write inside Google Docs, how I make my Google Docs look aesthetic so that I'm more likely to want to come back to it. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and sign up for my newsletter. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this, which features you're planning to use, what other programs you use besides Google Docs. If you have one that you love that you customize on your own, keep sharing any other resources that we could use. But I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you in setting up your own doc, and I hope that this helps support your writing. Okay, that was epic longer than I expected it to be, but I hope you loved it and nerded out as much as I did making it. I hope it really supports you. Make sure you are on my newsletter list because, like I said, you've got dozens of freebies there for you that you can use in your writing journey. And once you finish your novel, if you want to self-publish it, one of the best courses you could invest in is my 6-week self-publishing course, Publish and Thrive. It is open right now for enrollment, so get your book out out into the world. If you love detailed tutorials, walkthroughs that are going to show you how to fill in every single box, how to set up your business, how to get your ISBNs, how to upload your book, how to format every single thing, this course is a gold mine. And we cover so much more than just formatting and the business side of things and getting your books in the hands of readers. We cover how to get the best cover art, how to do market research, how to market your books, how to get onto social media, just 1,000 things. There are over 100 videos in this class, as well as personalized attention from me every single week during the course, where you get 2 full hours to ask me questions. And it is just rapid fire and fun. And as an alumni, once you have purchased the course, you are in for life. So you get lifetime access to all of the updates, all future recordings, all future Q&As and live streams and bonuses. And it is well worth double the price of what I charge for it. So if you are ready to self-publish and thrive in 2026 and beyond, come join us in this class. I cannot wait to see you there. Otherwise, let me know if you're enjoying these longer videos and these deep dive tutorials, and if you have any other suggestions for videos you would like to see that would support you in your writing journey. I am totally here for you, and I am cheering you on. All right, all my love, everybody. Happy writing. Bye.